Welcome to Brainstorm MTG. I'm ELD, and this is Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering. And here we have Dredge versus Paradoxical Outcome. Rich and Micah both been in the vintage community for a very long time. And we've got Serum Powder from Rich trying to draw into Bizarre Baghdad, the most important card in the deck. Really the engine of the entire deck, much more so even than Workshop is to the Workshop decks. And there's Bizarre to kick things off. See what Rich has in terms of an explosive start. Looks like Bloodghast, Stinkweed Imp, and Bridge from Below, making it into the graveyard. Setting up at least one body on turn 2. Flooded Strand from Micah. Looks like he has Ponder as at least an option here. We'll see what else he has. Ruby, Emerald. Looks like a Mana Vault as well. So do we have a Paradoxical Outcome here on turn 1? It would net some mana and draw 3. You can certainly do worse. There's Underground Sea. No real mana disruption to worry about when you're playing against Dredge. And just Ponder here. The Voltaic Key. Of course, that would combo with Mana Vault to make an excessive amount of mana. And it looks like perhaps a Paradoxical Outcome in there too. The top of the deck would be a fairly safe place for that. And there's the Voltaic Key. So it looks like Micah's setting up a very explosive turn 2 here. Assuming he gets one. Narcomoeba coming in. See if Rich has a land drop to bring back those Bloodghasts. But there's another Narcomoeba. For the draw step, so upkeep activating Bizarre. Draw step hitting another Narco off of a Dredge. Ball Therapy. Gonna generate one zombie token, one Bridge from Below here. Oh, we've got 2. Alright, perhaps as a proxy bridge. And that's gonna snag the Demonic Tutor on the flashback, and we've got Bloodghasts. Prized Amalgam comes in, so quite a board assembled. But will it be enough? Micah going to be able to draw and generate a ton of mana if that was in fact Paradoxical Outcome on top of his deck. Probe shows some lands, Stinkweed Imp, and a unknown proxy. And apparently not Paradoxical Outcome. It looks like he's scooping it up. Micah facing down lethal. And Rich earning game number 1. So Dredge was the big boogeyman in Vintage for a very long time, but still definitely merits respect. You're going to find a lot of people in their sideboard are going to have 6 or 7 dedicated cards toward Dredge. Sometimes there will be other applications. Cards like Grafdigger's Cage can still come in versus decks like Oath of Druids. Graveyard Hate can generally be reasonable versus some of the other strategies. That is a bit of the challenge of deck building in Vintage, is figuring out how to have enough cards to interact with Dredge where your sideboard isn't just, too narrow. You want to be able to improve all of your matchups post-board. I think Sorcerer's Spyglass, a really underrated card right now versus Dredge, as is Pithing Needle. In the past, it's been kind of a fringe sideboard card. People didn't really feel like it was even a full hate piece. But with the increasing reliance on Bazaar in the post board to enable cards like Hollow One and Gurmag Angler, I'm a bit more of a fan now of both Pithing Needle and Sorcerer's Spyglass. Really shutting off Bazaar does a lot, particularly on the play, to stop the just continued stream of Hollow Ones and Gurmag Anglers that can happen, even if you do have sideboard hate like Tormod's Crypt, Nile Spellbomb, or Grafdigger's Cave. I've not been seeing as much Leyline of the Void out of any decks. And I do think that has a little something to do with Workshops being as good as it is. People really needing to find a way to have their sideboard handle all of the different threats that they'll be facing, and Leyline just a bit too narrow in most people's estimation, I believe. So Dredge up a game going into game 2. Very familiar territory, good reason to run the deck. Paradoxical Outcome, definitely one of the decks that can steal game 1. And Workshops as well are at a point where they can win game 1 versus Dredge. So far from the auto-win days of the past, a lot of decks do have some game. Micah gonna lead out here with Mox Sapphire into Preordain. Sees Force of Will, not really a great card versus Dredge. Dredge very often, when it's ready to play a card that you'd be happy to Force a Will, at that point almost always has the ability to shred your hand with Cabal Therapies. There's really not much that they're casting. The sideboard does change that slightly with Hollow One and Gurmag Angler, but again, that also doesn't feel great. Certainly better than losing to those cards, but when they're playing free spells or very low mana spells, losing 2 cards from your hand and not furthering your own game plan doesn't feel great. An Outcome certainly capable of racing a start with a Hollow One. So Micah likely gonna set himself up to try and race. Drops Lotus and passes. And Rich opening up on Bazaar, activating right away, which may indicate that he's running Unmasked, but did not find it. Usually best, if you don't have any interaction on turn 1, generally you'll wait with your Bazaar just in case your opponent has a card like Time Twister. And Micah this time actually does have the Paradoxical Outcome. Drawing some cards here. Soul Ring into Grafdigger's Cage and Tormod's, and there's the Lotus again. So a couple of hate pieces here for Micah drawn into. And those will either need to be answered or completely sidestepped, one way or the other. And a Dredge from Rich. And there is one of the Hollow Ones. Would be much better in his hand. Not going to do much in the graveyard. But we do see a Hollow One. A Grafdigger's Cage does make dredging much, much worse. The City of Brass. There's the Gurmag Angler. So we see now exactly why Rich was happy to dredge, even though there wasn't going to be any upside from the graveyard. Filling that bin up. He's assembled 9 damage on board. That's exactly what the sideboard plan is attempting to do. So instead of answering both Tormod's and Grafdigger's Cage, just going to try and completely sidestep him with 9 damage. Micah's deck definitely good enough to race this type of thing. We'll see if he's got the cards, though. Very difficult to stop that Gurmag Angler from coming down with Tormod's Crypt. You can delay it a turn, but in general, all that Rich is going to need to do is activate Bazaar once. He'll be able to get a full graveyard again with Grave Troll, but Balance, a super spicy play here from Micah. That clears both threats. No bridge from below. With no bridge from below in the graveyard, those two guys are just out of there with no upside for Rich. That is brutal. Looks like Micah reloading his hand. Or selecting his hand, I should say. So he's got Treasure Cruise, and we should see a reload now, if I had to guess. And it looks like Micah had no lands in hand during that balance, courtesy of Gush. So got rid of Bazaar and all of the threats in Gurmag Angler and Hollow One. Ormod's Crypt coming down. Voltaic Key. Plenty of mana. Grafdigger's Cage as well. Another paradoxical outcome here. Replaying all of his zero cost cards. Just around and around we go. Sensei's top this time. And Sensei's top combos very nicely with those Voltaic keys. Going to allow for some net card advantage. And just a lowly Dackmore salvage from Rich. Rich knows he's going to be heading into game number 2 very shortly, and there's the Demonic Tutor. For the Time Vault, and moving on to game number 3. Micah with Balance to completely wipe out Rich's side of the board. Getting rid of both his Bazaar and his creatures. Got a Gurmag Angler, a Hollow One, a Bazaar Baghdad. Things were looking good. But Gush plus Balance completely wiping out Rich's side of things. And then Micah able to quickly reload, build his hand back up, and start to continually generate both cards and mana with paradoxical outcome. Exactly what the deck is designed to do. Balance, such a powerful Magic card. Not seeing a ton of play, but it is one of those restricted cards to just keep in mind whenever your opponent has access to white mana. It's one of those cards that can really swing the game, either completely wiping out creatures, emptying hands, nuking mana bases hard. Certainly do an awful lot. A great last card in hand. Or even second to last. Very difficult for people to let Balance resolve. Talking about a blue mirror. Of course, Dredge not going to have any say about that whatsoever. Or will Workshops. Paradoxical outcome, because of the nature of the deck, really doesn't need a ton of cards to rebuild. Even just a single card in hand in the form of paradoxical outcome could just rage right back, generate a massive amount of card advantage. Very powerful inclusion. Micah mulling here. Rich having Bazaar in his opener. Scry to the bottom. Go. Bazaar go from Rich. Voltaic Key off of Mox Jet. Academy is going to tap for 2 mana. Preordain. 1 blue floating. Could turn it into a black if needed with the Mana Vault. And Ancestral. Definitely a great use of a singleton floating blue mana. A Sapphire joins. So Micah going to have access to 5 mana on turn 2. Here we go. 2 Icarids. Brave Troll as well. 6 cards Dredge. Just Dakmor salvage for the second Dredge here. Hope for some black creatures to discard, perhaps. And no such luck. So not bringing back the Icarid. Bloodghast, one of the discarded cards. Second Bazaar. Gonna bring back Bloodghast. Like they may be calling to a judge here. Icarid is definitely a May. Got this second. Oh, I think we actually perhaps missed the draw step. Put the draw trigger on the stack. That's going to be a Dredge for 6, and now Bazaar is going to activate 5. So this is actually a really punishing situation here for Rich. What he should have been able to do, if sequenced properly, take his draw step, play the Bazaar, trigger landfall for your Bloodghast, then respond with the Bazaar Baghdad. Any prized amalgams that he would find during that time would then be able to return end of turn. However, no creatures entered the battlefield after that Bloodghast. That's going to leave these prized amalgams stranded. Graveyard. Ball Therapy. 2 bridges. Micah left with 3 cards in hand. Looks like Dig Through Time is one of them. Got a hollow one from Rich. All 3 creatures being sacrificed for a Dread return. Like that guy is going to be pretty large. So lethal has been assembled. Those prized amalgams do get to enter now that the Dread Returner is resolved and returned a creature from the graveyard. Here Micah's got 1 turn to make something happen. Grave Troll does count itself when you Dread Return it. So if you just have Grave Troll in your graveyard for creatures and you Dread Return it somehow, then it would be a 1/1. Kicking things off with the Preordain. Sensei's Top. Time Walk would be a welcome little bit of relief. Gonna start out with a Dig Through Time. Time Walk, Time Vault, Time Anything would be something. Micah facing down. Lethal on the other side. Does have a lot of permanents. Paradoxical Outcome. like Monastery Mentor at the front of the pile. That's not going to go into the hand. Just not going to be wide enough. Going to really need something super spicy. Storm, drawing 3, putting 2 back. And there's the Time Vault. Mox Opal. If Rich doesn't have an answer, it's going to be infinite turns for Micah, and he steals one, facing down lethal damage from Rich. Manages to find that Time Vault and take all the turns and the match. That's all for this one. If you enjoyed the video, please help grow the channel by subscribing. You'll be notified when we upload new videos like Fast Effect, Double Speed Magic with commentary, or Untapped, our raw tournament gameplay. Thanks for watching.